NFL draft ended a few days ago. I was in Detroit the entire week. We're going to talk a lot about this throughout the course of the show, but I want to open up the floor to the fellas here in studio, TJ Jefferson, Chris Brockman. Just lay it on me here. We got about 7 minutes. Give me all you got. Any questions you have about the Cowboys or otherwise and what's going on?
Cowboys, go ahead, TJ, start.
You know, actually, because that's all I do is talk about the Cowboys. I want to get away from them a little bit. So
wow.
I'll ask you this.
Plot twist.
One of the guys who I feel we talked about yesterday should be mic'd up this entire season is Keon Coleman out of Florida State. But I'm wondering, did the Bills do enough to address their wide receiver situation after letting Diggs go and, letting Gabe go?
I mean, I think a lot of people fixated on you have to get the receiver because you traded Stephon Diggs because you don't have Gabe Davis. They were quite possibly going to take Keon Coleman even if they stayed at 28. So to make a couple of trades, move down, end up with the same guy, you'd say that they got some value out of that situation. Absolutely. There's going to be a lot of people that are fixated on one of those trades allowed Xavier Worthy to go to Kansas City, your arch rival, and he could be the latest speedster who's torching you in the playoffs. But I went in, based on my understanding, I was going to the draft thinking, I'm not even certain that they're going to take a wide receiver. There are only certain guys that they thought were going to be fits for what they do. Keon Coleman, though, so he was on my first-round surprise list because after he ran a 4.6 40 at the Combine, everybody dropped him out. Right. When I talked to coaches and front office people, everybody said when you watch him play on tape, he's faster than that. Right. He was the fastest guy in the gauntlet drill at the Combine, which is where you're running, and there's a ball here and a ball here, and you're going down. Yeah. The ball looks like it's coming in slow to his hands, like he sees it. The fast guy in that last year was Puka Nacua, who also ran slow 40 and then went out and caught like 700 balls for the Rams in his rookie season. Keon Coleman was still training for basketball 2 years ago. He was on the Michigan State basketball team for Tom Izzo. So he hasn't filled out his body. He's like 6'3" and a quarter. Mm-hmm. He makes plays. It's a situation where I totally understood why Keon Coleman was the right guy for the Bills because they see a guy who can make an impact now but also has so much room to grow in the future. Was that the right one when you stack up that against Ladd McConkey, who the Chargers go and trade up to get, versus Xavier Worthy, versus the other receivers who are on the board in that general area? You can debate that. We don't know. Wide receivers are unpredictable always, but round one, round two, with Keon Coleman, I mean, he was the guy over Jaden Reed. Jaden Reed had a great first season for the Packers.
Right, sure did.
Again, he's not even fully focused on football until about a year and a half ago.
Is it true that he's the one that Josh Allen specifically wanted in this draft? I kind of heard that rumbling.
I mean, that's a good thing to say after the fact. I wouldn't be surprised if Josh Allen, I mean, again, he's a big receiver who can move. He's not a straight-up speed guy, but when have the Bills really focused on that type of a receiver for where they play, for the style of football they play? Like, yes, Stephon Diggs is a burner, but Diggs can be physical, and he's a technician. He's a really good route runner. The straight speed guy, not that Xavier Worthy can't do other things, but I understood why Keon Coleman was the guy. Those players, though, are always, along with Xavier Legette, the other receiver who went when they made that flop with Carolina at number 32.
Should be mic'd up all season.
Those guys, yeah. Legette, when I talked to him before the Senior Bowl, I mean, he is as South Carolina as it gets in terms of like this super thick accent, but big smile on his face all the time. With him,
he's like on campus. DK Metcalf build to him, right? He's a big kid.
Yeah, he's got probably more Debo. He's not as tall. He's not as tall as DK, but he's a big physical dude. The question is just, he was on campus for 5 years in South Carolina. How did he only have one season where he was in a factor on offense? He was playing special teams a couple of years ago. So boomer. How quickly can he pick up the NFL offense? What can you get out of him? Carolina, man, that draft, we haven't talked a whole lot because the Panthers were the worst team in the NFL last year. And unlike every other team that's the worst, they did not own the number one picks. They had already traded to Chicago. But the way that they navigated the draft board, it was all with the eye on, let's go ahead and get Bryce Young some weapons here. So you jump up a spot and you get Legette. You trade down, but then you trade back up again to make sure you get Jonathan Brooks. You pick up a 2 next year to give yourself some more assets to build with. And then the top pick in the 4th round was Jatavion Sanders, I believe, the tight end from Texas. Another guy who people thought was going to go earlier. He ends up sliding down. I thought that Carolina, for what they had with limited resources in the draft, which I know is not where this question began, I thought that they made the most of what they did have on the board. Brockman, you got anything else?
Yeah, of course. Obviously, you want to talk Patriots. Was it always...
You veer away from the Cowboys. Brockman's still one track.
Yeah, because you know what? Unlike TJ, I give the people what they want, and this is what they want.
We'll get back to the Cowboys.
They want blatant homerism. Was
I
it
gave
always,
Hoskins what he wanted.
Was it always Drake May? Did they seriously entertain any offers? We know they did get the pick in pretty fast. It was 4 or 5 minutes into the 10 allotted. The pick is in. The graphic went up there. So was that always the move, Drake May?
I want to go through all the quarterback movement and how all that came to be a little bit later on. But for the Patriots specifically, it was pretty clear that if they stayed at 3, Drake May was going to be the guy. Once they knew Caleb was going 1 always, Jaden Daniels was probably going at 2. There was a chance something else could have happened, but it was probably going to be Jaden Daniels. Drake May fit. And when I talked to other people, I did that massive 13,000-word quarterback story, talking all the scouts and coaches. Everybody was connecting Drake May to the Patriots. Why? Number one, he needs time to develop. They got Jacoby Brissett, so he can start this year. He knows Gerard Mayo. It's going to be easy. Jacoby's a pretty good guy. It's not going to be something that, it's an issue with Drake May behind him. So you give him time. Number two, Drake May is a pretty big dude. He's well built. He's a good athlete, but also just like he's taller in stature. Him playing in the AFC East, bad weather, Gillette Stadium, it makes sense. Like he profiled like that type of guy. And the third reason is because there were big Michael Penix fans in this draft. Obviously, the Falcons were among them. There were really big fans as well of J.J. McCarthy. But basically, when you had people rank them, and I talked to dozens of people and had everybody kind of rank how they'd stack the quarterbacks, it was pretty close to an even split between Jaden Daniels and Drake May. Jaden Daniels, unbelievable playmaker. Some people think he's the most talented passer in the draft. Drake May, from a developmental standpoint, was somebody that a lot of teams had high.
Never seriously entertained trading out of that pick.
They absolutely entertained offers all the way up until the day before, the morning of. And they even got an offer when they were on the clock. I'll talk more about that later. They got an offer, one last Hail Mary effort while they were on the clock to try to get him to move. But they had already, I reported maybe 2-3 hours before the draft, it's all signs pointing to them taking the pick. But they absolutely were open to it. And I saw some people like reading into that's, well, they like, but they don't love the quarterbacks. No, it wasn't that. It was, hey, if somebody makes you a Godfather-type offer here and you need a ton of work on that roster, why would you not entertain it? Mm-hmm. I think that they were like a lot of teams where they liked J.J. McCarthy. They didn't like him at 3. They weren't going to do it there. They thought that the value, the upside on Drake May was higher, whereas J.J. McCarthy might have a higher floor. Because Drake May, from that North Carolina offense, it's the most dumbed-down, simplistic type of thing. All those North Carolina quarterbacks who come in, it's this massive leap. And there's no reason to think Drake May doesn't have the aptitude for it or the work ethic or any of those things. It's just he's not close to being ready to play. J.J. McCarthy, he threw the ball, 4 times a game at Michigan, but he operated under center. He called plays in the huddle. He ran a pro-style offense. You feel like he's probably closer to being able to do the things that you do, or at least there's evidence on tape of him doing them.
Catch the Rich Eisen Show every single day on the Roku channel, 12 to 3 Eastern, for free.